From Good Shepherd Auditorium near Inwood Hill Park in New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where you meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and this is Live and Local. It's our podcast dedicated to showcasing the musicians of Upper Manhattan. We talk with them about what they do, and best of all, listen to them perform live in one of our favorite uptown venues. Today, we are excited to speak with local musician Annette Aguilar. Annette is a multi-percussionist, recording artist, producer, and bandleader. She was born in San Francisco into a family from Nicaragua and currently resides in New York City. She began playing music at the age of 11, and by the time she turned 16, she was sitting in and performing with renowned Latin artists Santana, Kyle Jader, Sheila E., to name a few. She has led her Latin Brazilian jazz group Annette Aguilar and String Beans since 1992 and has released 3 albums to wild acclaim. She, with her band, has toured 3 times as Latin jazz ambassadors for the U.S. Department of State and has also toured and shared the stage with many top New York City pop, jazz, and Latin groups, including Darlene Love, The Four Tops, Stevie Wonder, Tito Puente, The Grateful Dead, and many others. She has worked on Broadway, including Paul Simon's The Cape Man, Smokey Joe's Cafe, and In the Heights. She's also earned her bachelor's in music performance from San Francisco State University and a master's of performance from Manhattan School of Music and in music education at Lehman College, City College of New York. Ms. Aguilar has always been involved in nurturing the next generation of musicians and ran a music program for youth in the South Bronx for 20 years, in addition to serving on the faculties of the Jazz Power Initiative, Jazz at Lincoln Center, Celia Cruz High School of Music, and Lehman College. We are thrilled to have her here play live for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, Annette Aguilar. Well, thank you so much, Annette. It's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Aaron.
You betcha.
Slamming.
So you tell us what you just played for us.
What I just played for you guys? Well, the first one was like a rumba with the three congas, the three one tumbadora, sumba, super tumba, did a little rumba there, and some fundamental rudimental melodic strolls and lots of things that I've learned from people like Mongo and Giovanni Hidalgo and many people I listen to, of course, Ray Barretto, and of course, one of my favorites all time, Jerry Gonzalez from the South Bronx. So that was all integrated in there. And then the second piece, I sat on the box, which is the cajon. It just means box. Cajon is box in Spanish, right? And did a little like some Brazilian stuff, like some baião rhythms, a little samba partido alto, the Afro-Brazilian stuff, and another little salidor from the rumbas of the Afro-Cuban, from the Cubans. That. And then, of course, the third one was from my pandero, which is a Brazilian instrument. Well, we all know this as a tambourine. But in Brazil, which they're getting ready for carnival right now, they have a pandero. So I designed this with an amazing architect, and it's called the AAA model, the AAA skinny. It's got brass and all that. It's a beautiful instrument. It's very hard to play, but I played a little samba, a little twirl, little thumb rolls, and all that stuff for you guys, and all the sounds, because you guys are cool.
Well, we all know what that AAA model stands for, I think, very easily. Well, if I'm just going to get right down to it, what I most appreciate about you is the efforts you make to bring Latin, Brazilian jazz, and world music to the Northern Manhattan community and beyond. Not that this is an award ceremony or anything, but I think credit is. I'm all about giving credit where I think credit is due, and I mean, from stages to street corners, you're there. I feel you're an incredible ambassador for music and music in this neighborhood, and it goes far beyond just trying to get a gig. I feel
Right.
like and so I think you do an amazing job representing the music in this community.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think, like, as you know, it's about giving it to the people.
Yeah.
It's like food. You got to feed people. And, we were talking about this when I started doing the bodega
I
pop-ups.
can say you do bodega pop-ups. You hang out and literally in front of bodegas and play.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
And these aren't people going to jazz at Lincoln Center.
no, they will not get on the train. They're sitting there playing dominoes, and they're good guys, they're good fellas. I mean, not specifically good fellas, but but it's
men.
neighborhood. It's like the block on Dyckman Street. It's like I decided, like, of course, you're doing the pandemic, the same thing that you were doing. I just said, you know what? You just have to do it. And as arts educators and administrators and producers, you have to make it happen. You can't wait for somebody to say, well, I'll let you know if you can do. We're doing it here. They love it. They appreciate it. And then the whole neighborhood would be coming and it's really nice to have the bodega guys come up there. I love your music so much. It's a Latin jazz, Muchísimas gracias, papi. Todo para ustedes, And then everybody else bring their kids and stuff and did Halloween stuff. And, during Halloween, they had the bodega guys, man, they'd be showing up with all the candies, and the kids were all, it was so much fun. It's just got to make it happen. And you know this better than I do. And, I mean, you understand what that means to get, just do it,
Yeah, I mean, it just like I said, it's being a self-starter, and it's not just the act of doing it because you can bring out talent, you can hire people to play. It's more along the lines of recognizing where there's a need and recognizing where, it's the same thing when you're doing, people saying, well, why are you bringing Hamlet out in the park for people in Inwood or the South Bronx or wherever, and everyone's seen Hamlet. Well, you know what? Not everybody's seen Hamlet, right?
Thank you.
Right? And same as like,
right.
Well, everyone's heard the music of Tito Puente.
Not
I
everybody.
don't think so. Not everybody. And so that's a major thing that you're doing. And so I'm saying, like, it's So that's part one, is recognizing it. And like I said, we do share that in the sense of like, okay, well, you look around over both shoulders, there's nobody there going to do it. So guess who's going to do it,
Yeah.
right? But the thing is, though, it's not a labor. It's
Passion.
it's passion, and it's recognized. And so I would say, tip of the hat, if I had one to you, if I had a ski hat on like you do, I do that. I'd have a Bengals hat on,
Bengals,
though,
yeah.
because you're a 49ers fan and I'm a Bengals fan. Anyway, but you're a long time Inwood resident and Washington Heights resident, over 30 years in the community. And, I think part of that story comes from like an investment. And to carry on the sports analogy, I grew up in the era, the Big Red Machine, where you'd see Johnny Bench and Pete Rose at your supermarket, right? And so I think, you're one of the Johnny Benches and Pete Roses of our neighborhood, where it's like, how cool is that to say you saw Annette Aguilar play at a bodega, or you've seen her at Cabrini Shrine, or you see her at an Inwood Art Works event or wherever, and then you could run into her on the subway coming home from a gig, or you see her in the supermarket at Seatown. I mean, I think that's very special that we've created this community of usual suspects that are recognized for, like, it's tangible. It's not just, music shouldn't be something that you have to have a distance from. It should be something that, or art in general, it should be something I feel it's very accessible to, and you do that.
Yeah, I think it's important to to share the music with people and get people involved. I started doing these drum circles. I started that in Inwood Hill Park via Sally Fisher, rest her soul, and Chris Whitney, and to bring people want to be a part of it. You just don't want to stand on the stage and think you're Mick Jagger. It's like, get people involved. I started doing that, and just recently we're doing, especially now. I mean, we started, and you were continuing your work as well during the pandemic. It's like good for mental health, to people to meditate, to play drums, to have them involved, and that's one thing that I actually have been doing more so to I just started doing that recently at Trinity Church, getting drum circles, then having people play with the band, and it's funny what you say. I mean, we bring it to our community because we're not. This is not Broadway. We're the Vanguard is not on Dyckman Street. We create our Vanguard.
Right.
And that's what's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And well, let's go back to the beginning. You started playing at the age of 11, and you racked up some super nice people to play with by the time you're in your teens.
Yeah.
To get there, did you have a mentor or family member that pushed you, or just you kind of went on your own, did it?
In terms of a musician?
Yeah.
Not technically in my family. There was no musicians, more of these sports people.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad played soccer, but I mean, my brothers, it was the community.
Yeah.
I was in San Francisco between Noe Valley and the Mission, and all the groups that were playing, Santana had just came out, and that was huge for the Latinos. My parents are both from Nicaragua, and I'm a first generation immigrant, and it was just there. It was in the churches. They had workshops in the churches. They had my childhood friend, Carl Perazzo, who still plays with Santana. He's been with Santana for 25 years. I met him when he was 9, and we were playing in a drum set together. I was 10, he was 9, and we're playing. And then people are playing in the park. Santana's playing for Cedar Park. This whole thing. And then when we get into high school, everybody was playing, and then I got to go. One thing was, and I didn't really. It was just what was in the air, and my brother got into music. We're talking when we were kids, and then later as a teenager, we started our own bands. I started a band when I was 11. We just created a band, and then started creating a band when I was 16. And it was just, and there's a lot of people who have, they have their parents as musicians. I mean, Sheila did. I mean, Sheila Escovedo. I mean, I always known her as Sheila Escovedo, but she was like, her family, Peter Escovedo, who played with Carlos Santana, amazing musician from Oakland, and her mother, And that family, I had a community friend would take me over to Sheila's house, and we would just start playing. But she was amazing. I mean, her dad, she was around it all the time. I mean, I didn't specifically have somebody in my house, showing me playing drums. It wasn't that. I had my grandmother making homemade tortillas and bread and pescado and singing pescado.
So it was that community influence then that really brought you
Yes,
into it.
community influence.
And then you had, not too bad to have, your buddy Sheila E.'s dad showing you stuff and trickling down and hanging out in the park with Santana. But so you're making these bands up in your teenagers, like did it click to you at any time going like, okay, like did you have the bug from like this is what I want to do? Because careers are weird. Like kids want to be astronauts, they want to be firemen, they want to be like their parents, teacher or whatever else. Is like, did you kind of like was there like a moment to yourself you're like, this is the path for me?
Yeah, because I started gigging when I was 16 in the Mission.
So you were sure then, that early?
I knew, I bought my first car.
That's some crazy self-awareness.
When I was 17, 18. But what was really important for me was when I was 16, I went to go see the San Francisco Symphony. And Elaine Jones was playing timpani, which was really, she just passed away, the first black woman to play in a major symphony orchestra, or probably one of the first African Americans playing in a major symphony orchestra. Shizawa was conducting, and my teacher brought us to this performance. And even though I was working and I was playing and I was studying, and I was young, I was 16, I'm like, I looked at her and I didn't look at her as, I just looked at her as a musician. And I'm like, if I want to be a good musician, I got to know what they're doing up there. Because I was surrounded by Sly and Family Stone, Grateful Dead, I love James Brown, I love soul music, the Stylistics, I love rock and roll, I love Led Zeppelin. I mean, I loved all these groups. And I played in rock and roll bands, and I because I started playing drum set as a kid. The drum set was really my first instrument. But the conga came to me because of the community, because of Santana and all the Latinos. But to work, I'm not going to, go sit in an orchestra if I just don't know what the hell I'm doing and reading and what the conductor's doing. The versatility is and being educated. So I know, I did tell, when I told my mother, I said, well, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go to San Francisco State, and I'm going to be a music major. She wasn't too thrilled about it, I'm happy you're going, honey, to school for, the college, but música? Esa es cosa que estás tocando, que se vuelve para tu mano. I said, Mom, I'm going to play something else. I want to play the drum. I said, yeah. I said, yeah. I became a versatile percussionist and started studying with everybody. But I got into the classical music, orchestra music in undergrad, and I had my groups, but I was playing a lot of marimba and vibes and doing all these things and really studying. And then I came to New York in the mid-'80s to check out the schools. And I went to Juilliard. I went over there. But then I went to Manhattan School of Music, and I find it was more versatile. Because at the time, Juilliard didn't have any jazz. Not that I was a jazz major, but they didn't have diversity. So I prepared to get into Manhattan School of Music. And it was really good because later on, being that I played with the big band in Manhattan School of Music, and later on I got to play for Dizzy Gillespie's 70th birthday with Puente, with Randy Brecker, who actually did a gig was a guest artist in my band last year at Hostels Performing Arts Center. And just a plug, we'll be back there March 25th with some great soloists. March 25th, 8 o'clock. But I just, it was just that variety that brought me, but education is really important, and your teachers, because this teacher in high school was a really cool guy. He brought me to see San Francisco Symphony, and then he took us to go see Serpico. and I loved that movie, and I fell in love with Al Pacino. That's my guy,
It's also
man.
got a cool soundtrack to it, by the
Oh
way,
my God,
right?
man! I mean, those teachers. And then I had a teacher when I was in the 6th grade. Even though I played around with the drums when I was 7, he came to the classroom, and these are both guys. You know, they were great guys. He came in with a smile on his face, with the drum pad. What would you like to play? I said, I want to play the snare drum. So supportive. That's why, you know, after I graduated, I got my master's in Manhattan School of Music. I said, I didn't want to get a doctorate in performing arts. I said, I thought later, after I was touring all this, that's a whole story. I got a second master's in education because it's very important. I mean, you could be a musician, but you really have to know how to deal with what kids want and what you got to bring. We got to feed them first. Don't have no program if you ain't going to have pizzas and snacks, man. Come on.
Yeah, well, I was going to save that for later, but I think it's a good place to talk about it now because, I mean, by being an educator, like you've had these examples in your life who turning you on and showing you, listen, all you can do is open the door, right? They got to walk through it. But you know, you try to instill in your students, you know, the same thing. You know, they might find their own way by your example. So just curious if you have any advice for those students out there who are struggling to find their own way.
Follow your passion. You have to do the work, and even if you're doing another job, like say you're a technician or you become a IT person, you can still do your music. I mean, there's a lot of musicians, a lot of young kids who I just want to play music and make a living off that. It's hard to do the math. It's hard to make a living as a musician. However, these days it's very different because you can be your own entrepreneur. You can sell things, make money of doing all. There's a whole world out there with the internet, with all this information. Practice your instrument. Be a good player first. Know how to play. Study every day. And look up to and respect people who know more than you do, and be with people who know more, and take advantage of all these things. But you have to work. Yeah. You know, you have to work some type of job if you're not making it in, you know, it doesn't mean that you're not a good player. It means that you're being responsible, taking care of bills. And don't go to a school that you're going to be in debt with loans. You know, CUNY is a great school to go to. I mean, if they give you a scholarship, go. There's a lot of students who think I have to go to Berkeley. But Berkeley's going to cost you an arm and a leg unless they give you the bread. Yeah. You know, because you know how it is. You
don't want to be saddled by your creativity stifled by, you know, having to work a second shift at wherever it is. You know, it's that's probably, I'm a son of 2 teachers, and I can tell you right now that, you know, the worst thing we can do to a young person is saddle them with debt. When you don't have money. You know what I mean? It should be like later. It's funny. We get all our money towards it later in life. The idea, if we live so long to see the Social Security, we don't have anything for the people who are young, who are starting out to do things in life.
I know, those poor souls.
I'm not going to get into a social welfare program here.
Well, no.
But as an lifelong artist like you are, we both had similar paths in the sense that like we've never stopped. The train's always kept the rolling. And that's always been, you know, the hardship of like paying off your undergrad, then paying off your master's, paying off your second master's, and you know, there's help along the way, but it's always like it's like you know, how old am I going to be? My grandchildren will be, you know what I mean, kind of thing. But anyway, I don't want dig us in that hole. But thank you so much for sharing that, because you've seen a lot and you've taught many, and I think those are really good pearls of wisdom. And you went back to talk about that Dizzy Gillespie when you were younger and stuff like that. And of course, you get, as I mentioned in your bio, you know, you played with Darlene Love, Stevie Wonder. I mean, a gig's a gig. But have you ever been kind of starstruck by anybody you've played with?
I mean, when we got to sit in with Stevie, I was with Castleberry and Dupre and Toshi Regan. It was for the March on Washington for the homeless now. And that was in the late 80s. And I saw, there were so many people who came to that gig. I saw Coretta Scott King. And I looked at this beautiful woman. Oh, my God. I was like...
Well, that's starstruck. And you have to play with them to be starstruck. People coming to your gig, you'd be starstruck about, for sure.
She was in the backstage sitting there. Dionne Warwick was there. And then we all got on and played, and I got to play with with we got to play with Stevie, and Toshi was there. Toshi Regan, gosh, she's amazing. Her mother, Bernice Johnson Regan. I was very fortunate to work with them with the Temptation of St. Anthony with her music, and directed by Robert Wilson, who was pretty interesting. We got to meet. He was, he was a big star,
Big time director.
Yeah, he was cool. I mean, he's meticulous. We were in Paris for 5 weeks. That was some gig. And then we were in Warsaw, and I remember we all hung out, and we always, stayed out late in the hotel, closing it down. And he was hanging out. So that was, Star Trek, I never really kind of like, it's just like certain people, like, one time, there were not really artists. I remember Angela Davis came to our gig at La Peña with Casper Dupre and Toshi Regan. And she came in because she was a fan of, Casper and Dupre, the group that I was with in the late 80s, who won the best contemporary reggae album on the independent label. It was an independent label industry. And she came there, and I'm like, and she comes backstage and talks, "Oh, Judith, I really love you." I says, "Yeah, okay."
Well, you got a lot of stories, I'm sure. All the gigs you have. One thing that I'll just mention tangentially. I know, I don't think this will be at the top of your list, but just because you're a proud San Franciscan and you played rock bands too, I would think that you played briefly with the Grateful Dead on a gig, didn't you?
I did.
That had to be kind of literally, quote unquote, a trip.
I should have worn my mask.
Like I said, a trip in many ways. A trip in every key, right?
Oh my God! It was like 5 percussionists who were playing with the Grateful Dead. It was Fat Tuesday, 1995. It was the last gig that I think it was. I believe that was Jerry Garcia's last gig in the Bay Area. It was in Oakland, the Oakland Coliseum. And the Dead, you're in the Bay Area, there's the Dead, okay? I wasn't like a follower, but everybody liked the Dead.
It's part of the fabric of the
community.
community.
This is what it is, and I see all these skeletons, and I'm like, okay. And I come up, the minute I go into the dressing room with Mickey Hart's, I'm like, boom, oh my God, it's freaking pot. I know we're in California, but Poppy, it was like, and
that might be my last gig here.
I was like, no, it was cool, No, I didn't. I was like, okay, I know. And we got on the stage. It was so amazing. I could see why people are deadheads, And then Jerry Garcia gets up there and he's like looking at us, and the band, they have this certain beauty of some vibe that's like really pretty cool, That was really good to do a gig like that and to. Yeah. And Mickey Hart's pretty cool. He's a great drummer. It's like to do what they do and the work that they have done is amazing. Yeah. He's not Buddy Rich, but that's not, Buddy Rich was just screaming at everybody. But Mickey Hart's not screaming at you. He's going to be, do that.
Good times, for sure. Well, speaking of your hometown, you were honored by, I think, 2015, including in a large mural with, speaking of, a lot of other Latin jazz musicians from the Bay Area and veteran broadcaster, right, Mr. Gutierrez. For our West Coast listeners, the mural is in the Historic Mission District on 24th Street and South, right? South Van Ness. What an honor, right? And must hold a special place in your heart.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to be part of the mural. The mural is in honoring Chata Gutierrez, who was a radio broadcaster in the Bay Area, as Aaron mentioned, who did salsa, Afro-Cuban, Latin jazz, and 6 drummers were chose to be on this. La rumba no para. That means the rumba doesn't stop. And I'm there with John Santos, the great John Santos, he's like a brother. And, my brother was part of his band, Típico Cienfuegos, in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, and opened up for people like Los Papines and all. But John is like he's an icon. And then, of course, somebody who I followed as a kid, which was Raul Rico, a conga player who played with Carlos Santana for 38 years. He's probably the signature rock and roll conga player and that sound for Santana. He passed, unfortunately. He passed a month after the inauguration of that mural. That mural, it was inaugurated October, I think it was the 12th or the 10th of 2015. And then there's Carl Peraza, who is in Santana, still in Santana. Great, one of the best timbaleros, who I was in workshop when I was 9, 10 years old at a Paris Catholic school, auditorium like this. That's where we were playing, doing workshops, taking lessons. And then who else is it? It's me, him, and then there's Richard Segovia, who has an incredible, another great musician, who has a incredible museum in his house of all the Latin rock. Latin rock is really technically from San Francisco. And there's another drummer from the name Oscar, who's another great percussionist in that mural. So that was great. They had the inaugural. I flew out for the inaugural in 2015. It was Columbus Day weekend. I had a great time. There's an incredible Irish pub on the corner called the Tapper Nandy. My brother hangs out there. So, and they all hang out there. I mean, they're very fit.
And they walk by your beautiful face.
Oh well, we call it the A.K. Aguilar corner because my brother Jaime is on the carnival mural on one side. My brother Jaime Aguilar, and then there's my brother, and somebody, my half sister, told me that my father is in the mural where my brother is. Oh, cool. So we call it the A.K. Aguilar. So when I come home, we sit out there, we have beers. Oh, you go check the mural, and plus in Napper Tandy's a great Irish pub, with the new beer that I like, Schmitwick's.
Oh, Smittix.
Smittix.
That's Irish, man.
I love it, man.
We used to have it at Piper's back in the day. For those of you who know, Piper's is in Inwood, and then I can't find it anywhere.
I had to go downtown to get it.
Yeah, and you know who has it? Tortoise and Hare has it up on Van Cortlandt.
Oh,
you and
okay.
I'll go. We'll
okay, yeah. But how about the Baki place up there?
You know what? I was just there on Wednesday, and they didn't have it there. Sometimes they do have it in a bottle, but they don't have it on draft. But yeah, Smittix, amazing. It's so smooth. Liffey used to have it. Liffey Bar used to have it in the neighborhood too.
Oh, yeah?
When they got the renovation, they got rid of it, I guess. But anyway, well, maybe we can get a mural painted of you in Inwood with some Smittix to drink in front of me. You and I can hang out in front of the mural in Inwood of you and your band, and we can hang out doing that.
Smittix.
Well, speaking of, you recently celebrated 30 years of your band, String Beans, and have toured, released albums all over the place. So what's ahead for you for the next 30 years?
Keeping in shape. No, buying a building where my setup is set up and nobody moves it.
Tell me about it.
Having a grand piano that is all set and nobody moves it.
Right.
And a keyboard and drums and everything, and a parking space, and a little cafeteria there, and a child care, a children's room, a building.
I love it. We need it up here, man.
And that way the people can have jams, and then there can be some poetries. Because the thing is, speaking of 30 years of String Beans, it's going. Now we're going 31. It's like we started in the East Village in the Lower East Side. That's where the band started. Because we would play at the New Weekend Poets Cafe, where Miguel Aragon owned that building, and they had discotecas on Thursday nights, and Ruben Blades would go down there. Ray Barretta was hanging down there. I mean, Latin jazz, as you know, is America's music. It started here. It did start here. We know it's Cuban music. It's like food. The bean is from everywhere. The noodles from China. But the Italians make some good pasta.
That's what you do with it.
It's what you do, Poppy. Thank you. And it's like the burrito. It's like now they have all kinds of different wraps. I mean, Bruni has the Ethiopian wrap now. The burrito, got an Ethiopian burrito.
But Pretoria is exactly right. It's like, where are they getting that from, right? It's everyone knows that's Goya. But you're right, and I think, and that's like, and you kind of bring us full circle here, as we kind of like say goodbye, is that we make it our own, and you've made, as I kind of said before, opening up our conversation, is that you've made such contributions in taking Latin and Brazilian and different kinds of world music, and then no doubt the neighborhood has influenced you.
Oh yeah.
And so the neighborhood has shaped your music too. And so it's like, that's part of the ingredients, right? And so I think that's pretty special. That's forever part of the string beans, right?
Yeah. Well, I've become a quarter Dominican practically.
Me too.
And I love my Dominicans. I mean, they're hardworking. And of course, the Irish. I mean, the Irish everywhere. You got Irish Mexicans in Noe Valley in the Mission.
It's Northern Manhattan. It's Irish. It's Jewish. It's Dominican.
That's right.
It's like there's no you
Latinos.
You know what? You can cut the pie many different ways, and it's always going to move, but it's still the pie, right?
It's still the pie. And there's a lot of different La Raza here. I mean, of course, the Dominicans have been here because they worked hard. They came up here.
Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, whatever.
Central Americans, Salvadoreños, Hondurans.
Panamanians.
There's not too many Nicaraguenses up here, but whatever, and you have more Filipinos as well. Some Pinoys are up here as well, but yes, it has, and I've, I cherish that, and I cherish the whole neighborhood, and I think as a whole neighborhood, we are together. We know there's some recent things that have been happening in this neighborhood that we don't like. And that's one of the reasons why I do this mindful circle piece with music. I mean, that's when somebody gets hurt here, it hurts us. Yeah. It's not just like we're over here conveniently trying to do a gig and make a buck. It's not about that. We're beyond that, And one of the reasons, yeah, sure. People say, well, why don't you play downtown? Look I played at the Kennedy Center. I played at the Apollo Theater twice. I played at jazz at Lincoln Center. I played for the president of Madagascar. I'm up here because we want to bring, like the Staples singer's father used to say, or the Melva Staples would say to her father, why are we playing at these bars? We bring the music to the people. You share. If somebody doesn't know anything, you don't, one thing in education, you don't condemn somebody for not knowing something. You just here, this is what we have. We're sharing it to you. We're bringing it to, because it's just it's like what you do. You build it, they will come, because you can't sit there and wait for somebody to do it. It's just like sometimes I teach, I volunteer sometimes at some school. If the funding doesn't come in, I'm still there and say, well, why are you doing this for? Because if I don't teach these kids something right now, and I can afford to do it, and not that I'm a rich person, because I got to get that building. And it's like I'll be in freaking heaven hanging out with Miles Davis and Mongo Santa Maria, and these kids will be grandparents or great grandparents. You gotta share, do it. The money will come, the funds will come, the resources. You have to, we all got to do the math, and keep it going some kind of way.
Couldn't agree more.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I'm with you. Let's get that building going on.
I want my building. Hey.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, my dear. Thank you so much for being with us today. Before we say goodbye, where can we send people to find more about you and your music?
Social media. You don't like social media? Well, that's I don't like taking the night bus Bronx 19 to the Bronx. AAA Beans, Instagram. AAA Beans at Instagram. You can email me, Aguilar String Beans at hotmail.com. Annette A. Aguilar, Facebook. Send it through Messenger. We do have some concerts coming up. You can, I'll get you on my newsletter, but that's the best thing to check in that way through email. And the social media is really easy because it gets the word out. But, I'm going to be, again, March 25th at Hostel's Performing Arts Center. I will be with a huge band, 13-piece. And I'm doing some things at Trinity Church. In Inwood, I'm doing there something Monday, drum circle and playing, and we'll be there February 27th, March 27th, and some other things that we'll be doing, hopefully back at Cabrini Shrine. Love playing there, We like playing there with the duo, with just the piano and the percussion. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, June 6th, I'll be at the South Bronx Culture Trail at 5:30 with a 13-piece band. That's June 2nd. And then June the 5th, back with Noma at the Dykeman, not Run Club, the Dykeman Museum. I went to Dykeman Run Club. Dykeman Museum, Monday for Noma. And there's a bunch of other things, but I don't even know. But
All right. So you guys,
thank you,
you have your
Poppy.
you have your marching orders to check out her social media and keep up with all the her. And we'll put some links to Annette's work in the description of this episode, so you guys can keep tabs on her. All right.
Yeah, I'll have the website up soon. But listen, man, you slammed it, my man. I'm impressed. A lot of people don't get the bio right.
So I thought we did a nice picture, nice portrait of you, right?
You know, this is really, really good.
Well, thank you. It's all about you.
No, but a lot of people say they think I toured with the Grateful Dead. I didn't tour with the Grateful Dead.
I do my
You're
homework.
a badass.
No, my dear, you're the badass.
No, honey, but a lot of people don't get. She played with the Grateful Dead. Yes, I did. I didn't tour with them.
Right.
I toured with Darlene Love, though.
Right.
Oh God, she's amazing.
Well,
what a voice.
of course.
I was very blessed to work with her. So amazing. I mean, she's still.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. Well, Annette, thank you again. Annette Aguilar, everyone. She joined us here on this live and local episode of Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes that make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really does help. Many thanks to Church of the Good Shepherd here in Inwood, NYC for hosting us, and to HeightSites.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo. Be sure to follow us on social media at Inwood Artworks to keep up with all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up galleries, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Artworks On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. And Inwood Artworks programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.